Good evening, everyone. We will go ahead and come to order for our March 2024 NPU-Y General Body Meeting as we welcome in the first day of spring. So not only does this bring growth to our environment, but also to our goals and actions that we plan to pursue this year as an NPU. We have a few housekeeping rules. So if you can please stay muted. If you'd like to speak, use the raise hand reaction and you'll be called to the floor in the order you are presented. If you do speak out of turn, you may be muted as it is a violation of our Robert's Rules of Order. If you are on a phone, please use *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute and unmute yourself. We do ask that all comments and questions are relevant to the general body. If you do have any direct questions or comments, you may use the chat or email the specific representative you're trying to speak with, or Secretary NPU-Y@gmail.com for further discussions. You may also use the nonverbal reactions as to keep our meeting moving in a timely order. And lastly, if you have more than one member that's in attendance on the same Zoom login, please put their information in the chat so we can count it towards their voting eligibility. This also goes for our business delegates so that we can keep order to our voting records. First item on the agenda, we will move to approve our minutes. Let me just switch my screen real quick for everybody. These are our minutes for 2024's February meeting. There were some amendments made based on our voter eligibility, and that was for our votes for the variances and rezoning, and also for our CIG grant, which I'll scroll down to. So our CIG grant was actually tied for Unity Day and our street mural. Our voting for our BZA and ZRB items, they all still held the same voting consensus. However, the numbers did change slightly once we were able to verify. I will motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second, Rebecca.
I actually have a comment on the minutes amendments.
Yes. You have the floor.
So our APAB representative and NPU Vice Chair Gloria went in front of the Zoning Review Board and stated fraud and inaccurate NPU vote for the St. Vincent de Paul rezoning last month. Based on those comments, shouldn't we be adjusting the minutes to reflect a no vote?
No, that's not accurate, Heather. What I said is there were third ineligible voters. That is what I said. And that's the case. There were a third of the voters that were deemed ineligible.
So for these items, we did reflect to DCP through our voting report that they did carry. As I said, there's a change in the numbers. So just to audit the final vote, it was not the 24-10-4, it was 14-6-4 and so forth throughout the rest of these. They did still carry the same vote. So as to our minutes, they would still carry as the minutes are shown on the screen. Does that answer your question?
It does. It doesn't reflect what Gloria stated to the ZRB, but that's okay. Thank you.
We can certainly talk offline in order to clarify anything and make sure that we're keeping in compliance with our ethics and our proper procedures. So as the motion was held, are there any in opposition? All right, as there are no opposition, we will move to our agenda. On the screen, we have our agenda, which was amended from DCP's recommendation as one of our presenters had asked no longer to present. So the agenda holds as it is on the screen. We have three voting items. I will motion to approve the amended agenda. Do I have a second?
Second, Rebecca.
Are there any in opposition? All right, as there are none, we'll proceed with the agenda as amended. First I have is our reports from our city department representatives. Please keep your comments and questions to 2 minutes or less, and our representatives to 2 minutes or less as well. First, we will call on Major Ricker. You have the floor.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Just give you a quick overview on crime. So for February, we were 35 Part 1 crimes compared to 38 in January. So we continue to drop, which obviously is a good thing. We did have a homicide that took place at 1368 Grant Street. Unfortunately, a 69-year-old was shot and killed that evening. The good part of this story is that this morning, my folks, as well as our fugitive members, arrested the 18-year-old who committed the murder. So obviously that's a positive. The other thing I wanted to make note of is last month we had 4 aggravated assaults. 3 out of those 4 involve people who knew each other, and that's what we continue to see. Most of the incidents involving that are people that can't deal with some interactions that take place, and they lead to unfortunately these events. Couple good arrests that have taken place. 1181 Boulevard, which is where Park and Rec is. We had someone go by there and try to steal a generator. Turned out to be a security contractor. With the use of video technology, we were able to track that person down and take that person into custody as well. We talk about late night and how we have kids unfortunately moving around and interfering with some vehicles over at 215 Lakewood Way, which is kind of where over near where Lakewood Amphitheater is. We had 3 young males that were out there at 2 in the morning. Police interacted with them. One of those persons was wanted for an aggravated assault warrant. Also had a firearm on them. Also had tools to break into cars. So hopefully that stopped some crime. For those that are familiar with where 1450 Blashfield is, it's a recycling center. We have a significant issue with burglaries involving copper, as well as burglaries involving appliances. In this case, officers saw a male walking down the railroad tracks overnight, and when they interacted with him, he tried to flee. He had approximately 125 pounds of copper wire that he actually stole from the recycling center. He's a known burglar in the area, so he was also taken in custody. We also had a successful search warrant at 1128 Oak Knoll Terrace for narcotics. 3 of the 4 people that were arrested were gang members with the Rolling 60 Crips, and a firearm was also taken out of play there as well. So far this year, we've recovered 22 firearms in NPU-Y. I think we're on a good pace. Unfortunately, there's so many of those still moving around. I also wanted to make note that next Tuesday, there's a virtual town hall with Zone 3 and Battalion 1 at 6 p.m. And that information you can get off of either atlantapd.org or also go on our social media sites and submit questions that can be answered. There's a neighborhood watch training coming up on April 20th. And there's a Kia event for anybody that needs to get the updated software fixes that's going to take place where the Georgia State Stadium is, the football stadium. And that is in April on the 5th through the 7th. So there should be some flyers, I think, that you guys might be able to pass around in reference to that. And lastly, we have a neighborhood watch training on April 20th, and that's at Habitat for Humanity at 9 a.m. That's over on Memorial Drive. And I'm available for any other questions you may have. I can't hear you.
Thank you. I do try to mute myself so that way I'm not interrupting our speakers. Do we have any questions directly for Major Ricker and APD? Paul McMurray, you have the floor.
I have 2 questions. Major Ricker, can you send us a report of what you just said, so we can put it in our minutes, or was it only a list of things that you're pulling from your head?
So there's 3 of those items I've already sent over. Gloria should have them. I think she should be able to share them with everybody else as far as the meetings go. Okay. As far as all the significant arrests, I can try to break that down for y'all.
Okay. The other question is, since I live in Shoulder Park where the murder happened,
Mhm.
I wonder, do you have the address of the person that you caught? Because I believe that, I think it was within the neighborhood, both the person that was killed and the person that killed them. So I just wondered if you have the address of the person that,
I don't have the address with me at this time. I can get it.
because I think that's really important because it was probably a person living on Grant Street as well that either did it or was killed. So,
Yeah, for the sake of time, and because that's an ongoing investigation, let's have a offline conversation with Major Ricker. So that way he can continue his investigation properly.
okay.
Thank you, Paul. Next I have is Devon and Letitia Frey.
Hello, good
Excuse me,
evening.
we had a question.
Yes, this is a question as well.
Okay, go ahead.
Question, thank you. In regards to the neighborhood watch event, I heard 4:20. I'm sorry, was that the one at 9 a.m.?
Yes. At Habitat for Humanity? Yes.
Okay, 9 a.m. at Habitat for Humanity. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you. And I believe somebody was speaking. I'm not sure if you're able to raise your hand, but you can have the floor, Basse.
Yes, quick question with the surveillance, right? Because we remember a while back about Katherine Johnson, and the accident that took place with the officers killing her. My concern would be mistaken identity because artificial intelligence does have a lot of things that they have to fix. And being that artificial intelligence is actually in right now, my question would be, how would it affect a lot of the people around here, being that I'm a person of color? And the fact that a lot of that does have a lot of mistaken identity, and how we won't know that won't trigger anything in the neighborhood with that setting up surveillance like it is.
I might not follow you with what you're talking about. What surveillance are you talking about that we were doing?
You saying like y'all having setting up surveillance right through all the neighborhoods or what have you or whatnot, right? And you have software that you're dealing with the surveillance in the neighborhood. With mistaken identity that's going on, how would a lot of the people, the persons of color, feel safe and secure with this software or surveillance being set up in the neighborhood? How we know we're being safe? Because although you're keeping the crime down, that's still not giving me assurance on your surveillance being able to mistake anybody that looks like me as a criminal or what or fitting the description, because you have a lot of officers that says that just because I look like this person, I fit the description.
Okay, I'm still not following, the surveillance. Are you talking about, I mean, there's surveillance cameras around that officers can monitor, but there's no artificial intelligence aspect that's a part of that.
But so if we could, maybe we can chat and we can get some more information. And I know that Major Ricker has always been very open to meeting with members of the community and with our executive board. Maybe we can have a further discussion because I think this goes beyond, a simple question, as it really does relate to a lot of our members in our community and making sure that our police officers, our peace officers are, doing best for our members of our residents. So if there are no other direct questions, I will open the floor to our public safety officer, our committee report, which is Gloria Hawkins-Wynn. You have the floor.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I had one question. Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry. I just wanted to know the address of the Lakewood Way incident that happened with the teenagers.
215.
215. Okay, and it was a car break-in, or they was attempting to break in the car.
No, I said that they had the person that we located had a aggravated assault warrant and had tools to break in the cars. They had a screwdriver and they had a USB drive
Okay, yes, okay.
and a
Thank you.
firearm.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Chair. Major Ricker, there were 3 initiatives that we forwarded in the chat. Those flyers will be found in the chat. One was the Kia event. It runs from the 5th through the 7th, and it's a pleasure because they brought it to Zone 3. Zone 3 is experiencing a higher level of theft as those Kias. So it is a 3-day event, but it is designed to endear those customers who bought. I think there's going to be first Christmas, et cetera. There's also Major Ricker, will you speak to the other 2 flyers, the fraud flyer and the third one, just to give folks a little idea of what those initiatives are?
Sure. So there's a flyer I sent over. It's from the FBI. It has to deal with a lot of these, well, many different ways that you get contacted by either by phone, email, sometimes by text, where they're asking personal information to try and get information on your bank accounts. And in a lot of cases, it's preying on our elderly. So that goes through all the steps that it can be reported through to the FBI.
And the
And
last
then
of those,
yep. And then the last one, of course, is I mentioned is the neighborhood watch flyer, which gives information on obviously the date that it takes place. So
and it's generally a 4-hour block of time. Is that correct?
yes.
Would you also mention the ride-alongs, please, Major Ricker?
Sure. So we always talk about the Police Citizens Academy, as a way for folks to kind of understand what the police do and how they get to from point A to point B in investigations. But there's another side of that, and that's just participating in a ride along with somebody in Zone 3, one of my officers. All it entails is filling out a form. It requires a background check on our side. And then it allows, somebody from the community to ride with the officer during whichever shift that they want. And that's, approved by me. So if that's something that some of the residents, want to get a better idea of, the day-to-day activities in the zone and what we respond to, then I think that's a good way.
And lastly, we have previously had a public safety committee meeting by which we had asked Major Ricker to appear, but we felt like the notice wasn't sufficient to apprise the community NPU-Y so that we would have the numbers. Just as he mentioned a town hall earlier, we're asking you all to look for the 4th or 5th, the 4th or the 5th, no, the 3rd or 4th, Wednesday or Thursday of the next 6 weeks, where we get the majority number of those who would like to maybe convene kind of a town hall, both hybrid and in person, but at least we feel the majority need an opportunity to do an in-person visit and to meet with Major Ricker. It will be specifically for those residents of NPU-Y. So if you all will jot in the chat, or if you will put in the chat what you believe of the next 6 weeks, which is the best Wednesday or Thursday of the month by which you could convene. And again, hopefully we'll get a large number of in-persons. Would you lastly?
That is time.
Lastly is for Major Ricker, the bike tune, and that will be it, I think.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, we continue to have a bike unit, 2 of them actually patrolling Zone 3. A pair of them are assigned to Georgia State with Georgia State University officers. The other pair spend some time in the Lakewood Avenue community, and then as other issues happen across the zone. But that you should see them more now that the weather has turned a little better than what it's been.
Thank you, Major Richard.
Thank you so much. We
welcome.
will now go to our ATL 311 with Nancy Spru. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. My name is Nancy Spruill, and I am your ATL 311 ambassador. If you need to report non-emergency issues like potholes, water main breaks, missed trash collection, code violations, or challenges with city services, 311 offers 5 pathways to resolution. You can dial 311 on your phone Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can email atl311@atlantaga.gov. Set up an account at www.atl311.com. Download the ATL 311 mobile app and chat with a virtual assistant, and contact us on social media. By dialing 311 and selecting option 2, you will now be directed to the APD non-emergency services. This enhancement aids in simplifying the process of reporting police and fire non-emergencies. 311 remains dedicated to handling calls for non-emergency city services and providing general information. It is important to note that all police and fire non-emergency calls will continue to be routed to ATL-E 911 for ensuring appropriate responses. Examples of these are noise complaints, personal property theft that has already occurred, which means not in progress. If it is in progress, you can call 911. Reporting an abandoned vehicle on your street, and how to report a vehicle that was broken into and items were stolen. Our contact information and the survey is in the chat. Please use that survey if you would like to provide a case number for something that you need assistance with. And if you have any questions, I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Nancy. I will now call the floor for any questions. Kelly Petty, you have the floor.
Thank you, Nicole. Nancy, I'm putting in the chat right now a case number that I had from the whoever the rep was at the Lakewood Heights meeting. The case was opened and closed like within one day, and it was for some better one-way signs and do not enter signs over near Lakewood Way, because near the South Bend Park, because we're having tons of cars go up the one-way street. And we've got a lot of children over there that are riding their bikes. We've got our own cars going down the right way, you know, going one way out of the neighborhood, and the other cars are flying up. And so there are signs over there. I put a screenshot of the Google map. Yes, there are signs, but they are so small and people are just not seeing them. And the last thing I want is for us to be on the news because somebody got hurt or killed or a car accident. So could you please reopen that case and have somebody go out there? We really need those signs badly. Like I've seen two large trucks and like one of those Dodge Chargers plow through the neighborhood going down the wrong street.
Okay, I'm going ahead to I entered that case number in there, and I do see where that case was closed. I'm not going to be able to reopen the case, but what they'll probably do is open another case for you. And I've made a copy of your comment there, and I will put it through. And anyone else who has a specific case number that can go into the survey that I that I've entered into the chat. I'll go ahead and copy this information for you, Kelly. And
I added a screenshot too. So if you need
okay, I have to click on it. Let's see it.
Thank you. I did see that as well, and I saw the image. I'm not sure if lighting might be an issue. We can always get our Georgia Power involved when it comes to street lighting, as they do handle all street lights, and they're quite persistent about making sure to come out whenever we open a case with them as well. So we'll make sure to continue on with this this intersection.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Gloria Hawkins-Wynn, you have the floor.
Yes, Ms. Spruill, that may be a glitch in the system. That question has arisen before, that almost immediately upon submitting the case, there's almost an immediate reply that it's been closed. My understanding, that's a misnomer. It means that it's been closed in terms of the request. Is that possible? Can you explain that a bit, please?
Okay, so with this specific case, go back to the details. Yes, it was opened on March the 12th, and it looks like on the 14th, it was closed, and there was a work order. So when they do a work order, they're actually ordering the request for this. This is something that is done by the ATL Department of Transportation. They handle those signs. So they would be doing that. So there is a work order number that is attached to it. Have they provided you with that work order number? It'll be a WO number.
No, all I got was the two emails, the open case and then the closed case. And that's why I brought it up, because I was like, oh man, did they because I know there are signs there, but the signs are small, so I didn't want them to think, well, there's signs here, what are you asking for? So I didn't receive anything yet.
Okay, well, I sent you the work order number, a 033 number. Go ahead and take a look at that. And I suggest that you call back to ATL 311 and give them the work order number. They may or may not have sent it to you, but do you see that in the chat, a direct chat message to you, Kelly?
Yeah. Yes, I see it.
Yes, so that's the work order for that sign repair. Once 311 hands off the request to another department, they close the case. Because it's nothing else for 311 to do. Now it's an ATL DOT work order, and that's the work order number that you
Thank
can
you.
contact them directly for any updates on there. Is there anything else that you need from me, Miss Petty?
No, I'm good. And thank you, Gloria, for that, helping with that clarification. Yes, thanks.
And Kelly, I'm happy
You're
to assist with Michael Ulmer, who is our representative for our council member, and making sure that this is followed up on.
Why do you have your outside
An
shoes
email,
on?
and I'm happy to go through that with you.
Okay, thank you. I'll talk
In
to
your
you.
pajamas?
Okay.
Pajamas in the bottom.
I'm sorry, thank you for the muting yourself. All right, do we have any questions that are for the general body for ATL 311? All right, as I see none, thank you so much. Next, we'll call Chelsea Heron, who is the Assistant Solicitor's Office for the City of Atlanta. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Chelsea Heron. I'm an assistant solicitor with the City of Atlanta. We handle misdemeanor criminal cases for the City of Atlanta and all traffic cases for the City of Atlanta. We also do housing and work with code enforcement for the City of Atlanta. I know last time there was an issue that was brought up with the Lakewood property, and I did mention that. So I did mention that, Miss Gloria, to Miss Smith's team so that they could be aware of that. And I know that you have been following up. I'm happy to take back any questions or concerns. If anyone has a citation that they have any questions about, I'm happy to answer any questions. I left my information in the chat. We also have a great program called PTIT, in which your citations could be dismissed based on a couple of different things, but your cases could be screened if you get a traffic ticket and could potentially be dismissed and off your record. So we have a lot of great programs that we are doing and trying to enroll out within this year and next year, but I'm happy to take back any questions or concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for our solicitor's office? All right, as I see none, thank you so much, Chelsea. I appreciate your follow through. Next we have is Officer Lawrence with the City of Atlanta Department of Public Works Suite Team. You have the floor.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Officer Lawrence. I'm with the Department of Public Works, Solid Waste Education and Enforcement Team. Just have a couple of things to go out this evening. We are still on bi-weekly collection of yard trimming. I'm not sure when that will end. I'm sorry, my mic went back off. I'm sorry. This week is
You are muted again, Officer Lawrence.
okay. I'm sorry. This week is a non-collection for yard trimming. My apologies. Unless you have bulk scheduled. If you have bulk scheduled, they would have given you a date for that date of collection for the bulk yard trimming. That would be 20 or more yard bags or a large pile of loose yard trimming. Also in the chat earlier, I added information for a legal dumping hotline that we have, the Department of Public Works has. So you can call that. I've been told it's a 24-hour line. You can remain anonymous, so you don't have to share any information about yourself if you are, if you're in retaliation of any sort. Also, you can forward me any videos or pictures that you may have of dumping occurring. This is an initiative that they put in because we have had a lot of dumping. So that's something that we're trying to get a hold of as it has gotten out of hand. Lastly, if you have any neighbors that you know of that may not be aware of how to properly dispose of their garbage, recycling, or yard trimming, or if they need information related to bulk, what's considered bulk and what's not. Just put in a request to 311. Anything you have for suite, we are typically out within 72 hours to initially address concerns. It may not be completely resolved within 72 hours. I like to put that out there because we will visit and try to see what's the issue first. And then some are taken care of within 72 hours. Some it may take a little longer.
Madam Chair, that is time.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
You're
Any
good.
questions or concerns, I'll stand by and I'll resubmit my contact information and illegal dumping hotline in the chat.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions for Officer Lawrence and our suite team? All right, as I see none, we'll go ahead and move on. I do see that we have a few members that are with Fulton County. I am going to ask that you hold to speak until after our Fulton County Commissioner speaks, just to keep those in line with her presentation. So are there any other city departments that have not spoken at this time?
Madam Inspector Cofield is present.
Yes, I see that she just came on. Inspector Cofield?
Okay. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Officer Cofield with Code Enforcement for the City of Atlanta. The only thing that I have is for the Lakewood Avenue corridor, the house that's on at 7, and I'm forgetting the address right now. 1778. So I have spoken to the owner. And of course, he wanted to have his lawyer speak with me. I didn't want to speak with him due to legal reasons, but we did come to a conclusion that he was wanting to acquire the property. He wants to take advantage of the property, but he has the squatters there that are going to be there. I have actually spoken to them, and they're saying that they're gonna get the cars moved, which they've moved one. I actually went with an officer from our office, and they moved some of the cars, but then they moved them back. So they're different cars. I did go there to placard the property, and it was just craziness. And Georgia Power also was called because they were still in power from the power from the street. So they were called, and they did take all the power. Of course, it burned down. So of course they don't have any power in there as of now. But I have spoken to the owner, and he does want to acquire the property. But he's just not able to at this particular time. As far as the nuisance abatement case, Erica Smith, she's been out there. We have not, I don't know anything about a nuisance abatement as of yet, but it needs to go quickly. And I also talked to Jocelyn. It may be on the NREM as well.
Madam Chair, that's time.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Officer Cofield? Gloria Hawkins Wayne, you have the floor.
Yes, madam, thanks. It has been fast tracked to the NREM, and just kind of FYI for folks, NREM is when the government is able to take jurisdiction over the property for cleaning, close, or demolition. It's likely this building is going to be demolished because it is more than 50% compromised. So again, it is in the process, but it's been fact tracked because it's been on the city books forever, and this probably wouldn't have happened if they had done something quicker. So there you are, Inspector Cofield. It is being fast tracked too. Go ahead.
And also within the NREM process, that's where we put a lien on the property, so the owner will be access those fines or whatever the fees are for that particular lien that's being put on the actual property. And he is aware of that.
Thank you. Kelly Petty, you have the floor. Miss Petty, you're still muted.
2:15.
Kelly, when you're unable to mute yourself, go ahead and undo that and unmute it, and we'll go ahead and move on to the next person on the floor. Let's see if I ask you to unmute, if that'll allow you to. If you want to drop your question in the chat, and then, like I said, when you're able to unmute, go ahead and do so. Next, we'll call on the Atlanta Fire Rescue. Claude Nash, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone.
Can
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I placed my information in the chat. I'm Claudine Nash, and I'm with the Atlanta Fire Rescue Department. And I'm just here to speak to everyone about working smoke alarms. Just remember, every home should have smoke alarms in their bedrooms, hallways, upstairs and downstairs, including the basement. And the Atlanta Fire Department do have smoke alarms and carbon monoxide on hand. And if you're interested, I posted my information in the chat. Reach out to me and we'll make that happen. Or you can go to your local fire station and we'll take care of that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I do know that we have a couple questions in the chat that are specific to our fire safety. I guess there are, seems to be more house fires that are happening in Lakewood. Are there any stats on that, and maybe any ways to help our residents avoid fires outside from the fire smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms? Are there any extinguishers or anything of that nature that the fire department could supply?
We can supply the smoke alarms, carbon monoxide detectors. We do not have fire extinguishers. And I do apologize, I don't have the stat for your location. And I do apologize, I'm juggling 3 events at the same time. But I can get that information, or you can send it to me via email or chat, and I'll make sure I have it for the next month.
Perfect, thank you. Also, when it comes to properties that had fire damage, is the demolition, is that responsible of the owner, and how does that, how can we proceed to make sure that those homes are demolished?
Number one, if it's a home, they do not have homeowners insurance, the Atlanta Fire Rescue do come out, we extinguish the fire. There's another team that comes out and they will placard that home. It's up to the establishment of the owner to demolish it. If you're having challenges with that, I can connect with code enforcement. We can come out there and they can come as well, and we can cite it for unsafe conditions. And we can move forward to have code enforcement to try, solicitor's office and code enforcement to try and locate the owner so they can demolish the property.
All right, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
And I know that part of that question was also for Officer Cofield, but I believe that has been answered. All right, we will move on to our next agenda item unless there are any other questions for our fire safety. All right, as I see none. Next, we'll move to our elected officials. First, I would like to state that please keep your comments to 2 minutes or less. That way we have time for questions from our general body. Same with our general body. Please keep your comments and questions 2 minutes or less. First up, I will call Fulton County Commissioner Natalie Hall. Thank you for being on the call, and you have the floor.
Thank you, and please forgive me, I'm going to talk really fast, having only 2 minutes. So just to start off, I became your commissioner because of the Census 2020 and the governor signing into law the new redistricting. Happy to be back. Served before with my late boss, Fulton County Commissioner Joan P. Garner, back in the early, between 2011, 2014. And we have staffed up the Oak Hill Child, Family, and Adolescent Center at 2805 Metropolitan Parkway Southwest, so that anyone who wants to go to that location, parking is much easier. We will have staff there on Tuesday and Thursday from 8:30 to 5:30, so that residents can contact us. We also have the Fulton County Summer 2024 Youth Job Training Program. Nonprofit partners can apply up until March 29th. If you want information about that, you can call 404-613-6759, and my team member Harmony Brangman will put all of this information in the chat. as I speak about it, or you can apply at, excuse me, I have another meeting, that's just a reminder. You can apply at hsd.applications@fultoncountyga.gov. Also, Fulton County is seeking students to serve as youth commissioners to provide a voice for the youth issues in your area. They can apply 9th through 11th graders. They can apply up until Friday, May 24th by 5 p.m. Contact reginald.crossley@fultoncountyga.gov or go to Fulton County's website at fultoncountyga.gov/FCYC, stands for Fulton County Youth Commission. Also, we have, I do a senior BeltLine tour every year, every quarter, and I've actually got some dates with Atlanta BeltLine to do the senior BeltLine tour on June 14th, 10 to 2, September 20th, 10 to 2, and December 6th, 10 to 2. For those of you who are not familiar with my BeltLine tour, this is my way of connecting our seniors to the BeltLine so they can see all of the affordable housing and know what's coming, what's there. They can also see the small business incubator project, and connect to that and connect to any events and things that are going on the BeltLine for free. I also have,
Madam Chair, that is time.
well, I have Tamara Ivy on here from the Tax Assessor's Office to talk to you about your property taxes, appeals, homestead exemptions, and the like. And I have a lot more, but my time is up.
Thank you, Commissioner Hall. I do appreciate it. And we do apologize about the time limit. This keeps us in order. Do we have any questions that are for Commissioner Hall? All right, as I see no questions, thank you so much for being on the call.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll next call Jason Winston, council member for District 1, and then we'll go to our Fulton County departments. Jason Winston, you have the floor.
All right, good evening, everyone. Just wanted to say hello, a few updates. I am the CDHS chair, so that is the Community Development Human Services chair. So a few of my responsibilities on council include being a member of the Invest Atlanta board, the BeltLine board, and as well as the newly formed Atlanta Urban Development Corporation. And so this board, the AUDC, recently got an MOU with the Atlanta Housing Authority. So this new board will actively be kind of like the arm of Atlanta Housing and the City of Atlanta's real estate arm. So one of our main objectives on this board is making sure that when there are real estate deals that can benefit the City of Atlanta, that we can quickly act on those. Most of those are going to be around affordable housing projects or rapid rehousing, which is when a main goal of council, as well as working with the mayor this year. We just recently opened up the Melody downtown, which was one of our first rapid housing projects, and working with our unhoused population. Council has already passed over $10 million to help with some of our homeless initiatives for this year as well, including, we don't have an official title, but we're going to have a unhoused resource officers throughout the city of Atlanta. Right now, we're working to have one that will be stationed primarily in the NPU-Y area, Lakewood Heights. So we'll have someone that's dedicated to working with our unsheltered population in the community. Other council update. Many of you probably heard that we are down a member, post 3 at-large member, Keisha Sean Waits recently resigned from council, so we are down a member, but just wanted to let everyone know council has called a special election, which will happen on November the 4th. And so we'll be waiting until then to fill that spot. And so basically that person will serve the remainder of Councilmember Waits' term and then can seek re-election at the end of 2025. Had a few people recently that joined our South Boulevard Complete Street Project update. So things are still moving along with that. We had several meetings with ATL DOT. So for those that are not familiar with this project, from basically Memorial Drive all the way to McDonough Boulevard, we'll have over a $5 million project to resurface and make the street safer for pedestrians and cyclists. So it'll include a combination of bike lanes and turn signals. So the majority of it, the goal is to have it go from 4 lanes to 3 lanes with a dedicated turn lane in the middle at intersections where it's possible. So the challenge right now is that Boulevard is not the same width throughout its entirety. So we're working with our engineers to just trying to figure out areas where we can have safety improvements along Boulevard. Some other transportation updates. So right now it's still in the pre-planning stages, but we've got new sidewalks as part of the Moving Atlanta Forward bond referendum that went out a year ago for Lakewood. And so we're working to kind of get with our engineers to see what stretch of Lakewood where the dollars will make the most sense to have those new sidewalks. So I'll stop right there and be available for any questions.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions for our council member, Jason Winston? Jacob Mills, you have the floor.
Councilmember Winston, always a pleasure to talk
Hey,
to you. Sorry that I missed the South Boulevard meeting there. I just wanted to bring up, you had mentioned, developments as far as infrastructure. And I think that I would love to see some type of conversation be started to have around McDonough Boulevard regarding all the new infrastructure between, what the mayor's agenda is for the, Thomasville Heights area, along with what we already currently have going on in Chosewood, Benteen, and Boulevard Heights. So I would love to see that become, something that we can start talking about as far as infrastructure goes. And then also, the second thing was regarding the comprehensive development plan and your new positions that you currently have. Is it possible to start having some conversations regarding how we can better enforce our comprehensive development plan with the development, specifically regarding the Atlanta housing that you had mentioned, and that came up at the Chosewood Park meeting last month regarding the exterior facades, specifically on Inglewood street facing, and what we were shown as compared to what they say they have approved now would be something that I would like to, open up another conversation about as well.
Okay. Yeah, so your first question was around McDonough. So kind of timely, 2 weeks ago, I had a meeting with GDOT. As you know, that is a state route. And so we've got a better relationship with GDOT. So we are working on some specific grants. Now, 12 council members are competing for those grants, me being one of them. That's fighting to get some of that. We did get some safety improvements that were accepted by GDOT from Moreland Avenue. And so we're trying to do as much as we can to get those to kind of be pushed towards McDonough as well. But there's a lot of new development. The comprehensive development plan for Thomasville Heights has been adopted. I mentioned I'm on a new board, AUDC, which has already put an RFQ out for property in Thomasville Heights, which will be one of the first new developments. And I know it's just down the road, but got breaking news that we just got approved to start demolition on Forest Cove tomorrow. So it's going to take several months. There was some asbestos issues that they had to work through. So we should start seeing trucks out there as early as tomorrow with the demolition. And then your second question was around Atlanta Housing Authority. Let's meet offline about that. So we can talk about some of the issues. They've got Terry Lee as their new CEO and board and president. So I know she was involved in a lot of those conversations from the early part. So we can bring her to the table and try to address some of those concerns.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds great. Thank you, Councilman.
No problem.
Thank you so much. And next I'll have is Devon and Letitia Frey. You have the floor.
All right. Thank you. Hey, Councilman Winston, how you doing? Good evening.
Hey.
Hey, got a question for you. Just being new to the High Points Estates neighborhood, I'm just curious about the progress along the South Side BeltLine Trail. I know I previously went to the site and dug around and saw some dates in regards to construction, but I was just curious, with all of the other projects that are coming about and new things being introduced, it feels like every other week or at least monthly. I was just curious if there was any update in regards to that portion and kind of, I guess, the overall plan maybe for that portion.
Yeah, that's actually a timely question. So with the BeltLine, so that portion, which is trails 2 and 3, is what they call those segments. So they've already put out an RFP for that, and a contractor will be selected here probably in the next month or two. So they're expecting to start construction either at the end of Q2 or at the beginning of Q3 this year. So that will tie into segments 4 and 5. So 4 and 5 goes from Boulevard, right at Chosewood, all the way to Armwood Park. So the entire south side, connecting east to west of the BeltLine will be complete by 2026.
And when you say complete, are you just referring to paved only, or is there other? Because you know how it is. Different parts of the BeltLine look different ways.
It's going to be completely paved. Now, in terms of development, it just depends on, what potential projects that are coming. But I know that some have already been kind of announced in the Chosewood area. And I would suspect a lot more will start coming, just depending on, who owns the property.
Okay, last question as a follow-up to that. When you say, I heard you say starting in one of our quarters, how long is that estimated to take completion for it to be paved?
They're estimating 18 months.
18 months. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you. Paul McMurray, you have the floor.
Yes, Councilman Winston, I made a request from a Children's Park Facebook page about a small area on Milton Avenue to get sidewalks, but clearly the images showed that it was justified. So in all this either personal money or this bond issue money, is there any possibility that the request made on Facebook can be fulfilled?
So I actually went out there, Paul. I responded to your email about it. So that stretch is pretty long. So I know you were asking about sidewalk gaps. So the sidewalk gaps typically, if it's about anywhere from 40 to 90 feet in front of one home, can range anywhere from about 40,000 to 60,000. That stretch you're talking about would cost a significant amount of money. You're talking about probably 100,000 or more to be able to do it. So I don't have any discretionary funds that can handle that unless there's a large project where their sidewalk is not needed and we can transfer those funds. But all of the Moving Atlanta Forward projects and the T-Splot projects that were done are on a project list that is already. But if for some reason we need to move projects around, then we could look at that potential stretch as well.
Yeah, well, it was only probably about 5 houses long. It wasn't that long, but what you're saying, that cost 100,000.
Yeah, I mean, you multiply that by 50. I mean, 5 times 50,000 on an average. That's going to be the cost to get those done.
Okay.
But one-offs. So to Paul's point, just so everybody has clarity. So a lot of times you've probably seen new development, and there's a couple of spots in Lakewood that I'm not a fan, where someone has a new development or they do construction and they put a sidewalk, and it is the only sidewalk segment on their side of the street. Well, developers don't have to do that. So if you know someone that's doing that, and then they're being required to do a sidewalk, and it's the only segment, they can transfer that sidewalk to another part of the city, another part of the neighborhood where there may be a gap. So we can do that, or they can pay into a sidewalk fund that exempts them from having to do that sidewalk, and we can use those funds for other gaps. And so, the more people that do that, the more District 1 will have dollars available to do long stretches like you just mentioned.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarity on it, because I know sidewalks and our safety of our pedestrians has been a topic that we've been discussing for quite some time, as a lot of these developers are coming into the area. Do we have any other questions for Jason Winston, for our council member?
I saw there was one from Ms. Howe in the chat, but I don't remember what we were discussing at the time to be able to answer.
Ms. Howe, would you like to have the floor? I believe this had to do with the development of either Boulevard Crossing or some of our other streets.
No, I think he was talking about the Thomasville area, the demolition.
So you're asking, how is it going to keep the surrounding community safe?
Yes, I know they said they found asbestos, and I'm wondering if you guys took care of that. And
oh yes,
found anything else unsafe before they start tearing down and putting stuff in the air and transferring stuff throughout the community?
Yeah, the city had to work with a special asbestos kind of remediator to be able to do it. This actually delayed demolition for probably 4 to 5 months because there were special requirements that they needed to take to be able to even remove the structures. So a lot of that's already been taken care of.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. As there are no other questions, thank you so much, Councilmember Jason Winston, for being on our call. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Have a great evening. All right, so we do have to keep up with time. So just a reminder for everybody, it is 2 minutes or less for your presentations. Our next up is Tamara Ivy with Fulton County Assessor's Office. You have the floor. Tamara, are you on the call still?
My name is Chris Fields. I can step in for Tammy.
My pleasure. Go right ahead.
All right. Right now, we're in the process of reviewing our parcels in preparation for notices. If anybody want to get in contact with us, they can reach us at fultonassessor.org. They can review their parcels, any kind of discrepancies that they see or any kind of question that they have. Everything is online. They can give us a call. They can come in between 8 a.m. and 4:30. We'd be happy to answer any kind of questions for them. That's all I got for now.
And remember about the homestead exemption, the deadline for that is April the 1st. Anybody that's newly moved into a new home, remember about the homestead. It does save you some money. I'm sorry I couldn't get myself off mute while ago.
Madam Chair, muted.
Thank you. Tamara and Chris, if you're able to drop in the chat where residents are able to find that information about their homestead exemption. I know that that has been something that we have discussed through the city recently, and we want to make sure that we're sharing that with those that are on the call.
Okay.
Do we have any questions then for our assessor's office with Fulton County?
I do real quickly, Madam Chair. Yes. And my understanding that you're speaking with maybe the tax assessor before going to the BOE hearing. Like a lot of those Board of Equalization hearings are scheduled currently, it seems. But is it a recommendation that if we have an issue and want some conversation to approach the tax assessor's office first, and they'll give us an understanding of how they came to their assessment?
Yes, ma'am. We're in the process of right now compiling the 2024 digest. And so we're hopefully going to be sending our notices out around the middle of June. And that would be, of course, time to, if you have a problem with the value that we've assessed, then that would be the time to file your appeal.
Thank you.
If you have an appeal for 23 though, and it still hasn't been heard, I know we are in the finalization of finishing up those 23 appeals. So if you haven't heard anything, you might just want to call the office and check, see where the status is with it. And I'll put our information and website there in the chat as well.
Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Additionally, NPU University did just recently hold one of their sessions which talked about the homestead exemption, and that recording can be found on YouTube. We'll be sure to put that information in the chat throughout the meeting, so that way anybody that would like to review that information is able to.
Yes, and the only other thing about the homestead, we have local exemptions that once you reach 62, once you reach 65, once you reach 70, it helps you with the school tax portion of it. So, even if you have homestead already, you might be eligible for one of those. You have to be that age as of January 1st of that year.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions for our assessor's office? All right, as I see none, we'll go on to Roderick Conley, and this is with our Fulton County Chief Appraiser.
Good evening. I'm also with the Board of Assessors Office. I have nothing else to add. I'm just here in support of our wonderful staff. Miss Ivy and Mr. Fields did an excellent job presenting to you guys what we're all about. If we can answer any questions via coming into our office, via phone, via email, we are available to you. Let us know how we can help.
Thank you. I do appreciate it. And once again, if you can just drop that information in the chat again, so that way it's available to all members that are on the call at this moment.
Absolutely.
All right, with no other questions from the body, we'll go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, which is our committee reports. I would like to remind our committees to keep your reports to 2 minutes or less. Please have our general body hold all comments and questions for our committee until all committee reports are completed. So first up, we will have our zoning, land use, and code enforcement, which is co-chaired between Jacob Mills and Robert Morris.
Good evening, everyone. I am Jacob Mills. Bob, unfortunately, is not able to attend this evening, so I'll be glad to give the report. As per, we do meet once a month on Wednesday, the last Wednesday of each month. We encourage all members of all of the neighborhoods from NPU to attend and come. Please give us input, ideas, and we're always looking for solutions to resolve a lot of the new issues that we constantly come up with when it comes to the new developments in the neighborhood. As far as what we currently have this evening, I believe we have 2 agenda items that are up for voting matters as far as variances go. The recommendation from last month was from the zoning committee was to approve both of these variances that are coming up. But as always, we always rely on the neighborhood and their vote to, really kind of give the added weight, I guess, so to speak, to the voting matters. So we always look to the neighborhoods for what their recommendation is as well. I guess there's no questions because we hold that to the end. That is the end of my report. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you.
Miles. Next, we'll have Parks, Beltline, and Environment with Dr. Rebecca Robinson.
Good evening. I have nothing to report. I'll leave my contact information in the chat, though, if anyone's interested in hearing more information about the committee.
Thank you. Let me see if we have the next. Yes, so Lakewood Oversight, we have Yolanda Cameron.
It's good evening, everyone. The Lakewood Oversight Committee met last week. The general manager, Akeisha Branch, was there. She reported that the amphitheater is under in full preparation mode for the upcoming concert season. They're doing some small repairs, like redoing floors in the concession area and some ground maintenance repairs. Also, the city of Atlanta has sent out, they said they keep getting periodic surveys from various offices from the city of Atlanta to kind of address some of the flooding issues that have long time plagued the amphitheater. So just fingers crossed they're kind of looking at addressing that in the coming years. Also, there's an upcoming job fair for staffing of the upcoming concert season. It's going to be into mid to end of April. Flyers will be distributed 3rd week of April. The concert season is smallish. You can go online and look at it. The first soft opening event will be Saturday, May 18th. It is a Red Bull event. I don't think that's advertised yet. And then the official grand opening of the concert season at the amphitheater is June 8th. And it is with a Boogie with the Hoodie event or something, some concert. Again, that's online. If you go online to Live Nation, you'll see everything.
Thank you. Next is our ad hoc for special projects, which handles our CIG grant. I'll go ahead and give that update is that as our vote ended up being tied, once we verified voting eligibility, we did put our application in on time, and it was for both Unity Day and for the street mural, as well as a conjoined event. This was a recommendation from the CIG committee to place both items on the application. So we'll have feedback from the committee as to what they feel is more viable for our community to be able to finalize within time. With that being our committee reports, and ad hoc will pull it right after this. Are there any questions for any of our committees? All right, as I see none, next up is our APAP report. Gloria Hawkins-Wynn.
Hey, yes, good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair. APAB, what does it stand for? Atlanta Planning Advisory Board. The birth of the agency was probably about the same time that the NPUs evolved under the Maynard Jackson administration. And this is a glorious year. It is the 50th anniversary of the NPU system. And I can say to you, I believe in the last 5 or 10, it's become more of a voice of the communities. Why? Because within the last 5 or 10, suddenly there's a dedicated office within DCP, the Department of City Planning, that literally passes the applications to the community and really acts as a go-between between the city agencies and the communities. APAP met on Saturday. We had a presentation from the Transportation Commissioner, his representative. I believe the Transportation Commission has only been in effect, maybe he's the second, and I believe this is the second year, and the first was only on maybe a year. But transportation has become the call of the day for the city of Atlanta. Why? They're expecting 1.2 million people to converge on Atlanta looking for housing, transportation routes between now and 1930 is my understanding. The Atlanta Regional Commission says it's slightly less. They're saying 800,000. Nonetheless, what we looked at from transportation, which was probably well, let me start with the agencies. We have openings through APAB for several city agencies. TADAC is, what is it? Transportation, the Atlanta, TADAC, Advisory Council. There's at least 2 people who are here currently on TADAC. It deals with the BeltLine, Tax Allocation Division, Tax Allocation District Advisory Council. These are folks who are assigned to TADAC. I'm not sure what, how much they are actually moving the needle, but we're looking for at least one more individual through APAB from NPU-Y. If you will check with Nicole, she can probably give you more information on it. One of the 2 things that we looked at through transportation was a Vision Zero vision. I guess it's the Vision Zero of the Transportation Department. In 23, there were 71 deaths, fatalities on the streets. This year, there's 6 to date. Again, it is an effort to decrease the number of fatalities on the city streets.
Madam Chair, that is time.
Just one last one. The biggest one is Streets Alive, to take place between the 19th of May and the 19th of May. If you look on our site, the information is there. We're going to close off street blocks for those weekends I think it's the 3rd Sunday for the next 3 weeks. But again, that information will be found at npuy.org. And lastly, this coming Friday at Black Coffee, we're going to have Nate Hosell, who's co-chairing the CDP Comprehensive Development Community Engagement, by which we have to have that 5-year mandate submitted in order to get federal funds. There you are.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions for APAB? All right, as I see no hands raised, thank you so much. All right, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is our voting matters. First up, we have is our V-23-194. This is for 100 Park Avenue Southeast. It is in South Atlanta and it is for a variance to reduce the half depth of the front yard of 17.5 feet to 9.7 feet. Do we have the applicant on the call? If you are on the call, you are able to unmute yourself to speak and present your item. As the applicant is not on the call, I know that they did speak with the community. I will open the floor for a motion on whether or not to defer or to move forward with the information from the neighborhood and a vote on the matter. Jacob Mills, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam Chair. What was the consensus from the neighborhood?
South Atlanta, Devon Dixon, would you like to speak?
This variance was approved. It was a corner lot. Their driveway was on the Krogman side of the street, and their front door technically is on the park side. So this half depth reduction was actually in line with neighbors, so it was approved.
All right, that was my question, Devon, because the recommendation based on the conversation at the zoning committee was for approval as well.
Motion to approve, Troy Nunley.
Second, Rebecca.
All right, I will go ahead and launch the poll.
Point of order, Madam Chair, was that seconded? That
Yes,
motion?
it was by Rebecca Robinson. All right, so the motion on the floor is to approve. Oh, hold on one moment. Give me one. Wrong poll up. Here we go. So the motion on the floor is to approve the applicant based on the consensus from the community to approve a variant setback from 17.5 to 9.5. As a reminder of our general body, that you do have to have an eligible voting status. That voting status is that you have met 3 out of the 12 meetings in the last month. If you are a resident of the community, please make sure that you are voting through the poll or in the chat. If you are a business constituent, we do ask that you make sure you put that information in the chat so we can keep your voting eligibility accordingly. Additionally, if you have more than one member on the call, please make sure that you're placing that in the chat as well. We will keep this open for one more moment.
Madam Chair, you may want to look at Rebecca's chat message.
Yes, those that are co-host, you are unable to vote in the poll, so just make sure you are putting that in the chat. You can do that as a direct vote, or you may place that for everybody to see. All right, we'll keep it open for 10 more seconds. Again, if you're unable to see the poll, please just put that in the chat. Again, you can do it as a direct vote. It does get tallied in, and that information is put into our polling results. All right, and we will be closing the poll. All right, the poll is 13 yes, 0 no, and 2 abstentions. So with our chat, it looks like we have 17 yes, 0 no, and 2 abstentions, and so the motion carries. This next agenda item, give me one moment, just close all this out. This next agenda item is, I'm actually going to be recusing my position as chair, as there is a conflict of interest. With that, we will be positioning our vice chair, Gloria Hawkins-Wynn, as acting role, and she will handle the presentation portion, and our parliamentarian will handle our poll for our voting results. So let me just switch over to who is our host on this matter. Gloria Hawkins-Wynn, you now have the floor as acting chair.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This item falls under the Board of Zoning Adjustment, the BZA. It is V2431. The applicant seeks a variance from the zoning ordinance to number 1, reduce the front yard setback from 35 to 15 feet. Number 2, reduce the east side yard setback from 7 feet to 5 feet. And thirdly, reduce the west side yard setback from 7 feet to 5 feet. This location is at 74 Meldon Avenue Southeast, which is in South Atlanta neighborhood. And the public hearing is scheduled for April 11, 2024. I will now turn this over to the expediter for the applicant, Nicole.
Thank you. So as Gloria said, this is in South Atlanta, so it is a reduction from a front setback at 35 feet to 15 feet and both side yard setbacks from 7 feet to 5 feet. The property is currently zoned R4, which does not consist with the actual size of the property. Typically, this could either be a variance to reduce setbacks or could be rezoned to an R4B in order to limit the FAR to consist with the rest of the neighborhood. The applicant, the homeowner, has chosen to change the setbacks only. This shows our setbacks here where you can see other properties that are actually further forward than the requested 15 feet. The 5 feet from 7 feet would allow for a driveway to sit on the side of the property, which is consistent with the neighborhood. As you see on the site plan, all that is in green in the back is unbuildable space due to the critical root zone of old growth trees. So in order to make sure that we're saving those legacy trees, moving that house forward is crucial to be able to build on the property. It also has a very big steep depth from this location back where it goes from street level down. And so being able to build further up closer to the street is crucial as well. These are some of the potential build designs for the property. Scroll down here for you, sorry about that. The potential layouts for the property. So it would have a front entryway with bedrooms and living space, as well as a basement living space and utilities as on the basement level, which does have its own private entrance. And then the upper floor would have bedrooms as well. Here's some of the elevation views. So it's sticking to a lot of the new construction that is in the neighborhood of 2-story builds from ground level. And it does have a front porch, which consists with the characteristics of the neighborhood as well. The property owner does want to do a fence around the rear of the property for privacy and security. The neighbor that is adjacent to it on the east side does already have a privacy fence surrounding the property, so it's not adhering to any characteristics of those surrounding this home already. So with this property, it is a setback reduction. Just for the front yard and side yards, there will be no change in the rear yard setback or adjustment to the FAR. I will hand it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Generally, at this point, there's a question from the community to hear the voice of the community on this issue. And I believe I heard Devon earlier. I'm not sure if he's the spokesman for South Atlanta.
This applicant adhered with the aesthetics of the neighborhood, or it's attempting to. They did not conflict with the CRZ of the old growth trees in the backside. They were able to shift the house forward slightly and still be recessed back from their adjacent neighbors. They reached out to the adjacent neighbors for the side setback reduction, and both neighbors were okay with it. So this variance request was approved in South Atlanta.
Very good. I guess at this point, are there any questions from the body?
I believe Jacob has his hand raised.
Jacob, you recognize.
Yeah, I was just going to say if the neighborhood has already approved this, I would like to make a motion just based on the zoning committee also approving this. I'd like to make a motion to approve this.
Is there a second?
Second, Rebecca.
So moved. The motion, the recommendation passes.
We have to, Madam Vice Chair, we have to launch the poll.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry. Thanks, Rebecca.
And there is one more hand raised, you guys.
Oh, I don't know. Is that Dr. Nunley? Dr. Nunley, you're so come to your.
Oh, yes, it is.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I just got, so Nicole, are you the applicant?
I am the applicant. I have designed and am working with the permit process for the homeowner. The homeowner's on the call. So this is a design build for the homeowner to live in.
Okay, so I only have one request, and that is just to make a quick note to the code of ethics, just telling them that you are applicant for one of the applications, so you can cross all your T's and dot all your I's, make sure everything's covered here.
Yes, we have spoken with a DCP rep to make sure that we were following accordance to our code of ethics. And as their recommendation was, as long as the neighborhood had no issue with my presentation, that we could move forward with it as long as it was disclosed prior to the application.
Okay, great to hear. Okay. Yep.
Thank you.
One additional question, Dr. Nunley. There's a difference between being the applicant and the expediter. Is that not correct? The expediter doesn't have that same duty. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, my only concern as a chair, as just on Nicole's behalf, is sometimes it can get kind of dicey when you're doing an application for financial gain. So just as long as she already talked to the DCP and got approval through DCP, then I'm fine with it. I just wanted to make sure that was recorded and documented so that if anything else comes about it, then we got all the necessary documentation in place so that she won't get in trouble for it.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you.
So my apologies, I launched the poll a little bit early, but I'll give another minute or so, or Vice Chair, another minute or so before we close it.
I don't see any other hands raised, Rebecca. It's up to you. I think you can launch it any time that you're ready and just advise individuals that it's being launched, like right now, I guess.
Okay, we'll give another 30 seconds on the poll. Please enter your vote.
Would you relaunch it for me, Rebecca? I also, but
I
you know,
think you're
forget
gonna
it.
have
I'm
to put
unable to.
yours in the- Yeah, you're gonna have to put yours in
Put it
the
in
chat.
chat, yes.
Yeah. Okay, another 5 seconds.
Polling results are published. 73% yes, 11 out of 15, 1 no, 1 out of 15, and abstain, 3 out of 15.
I'm sorry, it appears that the body is, a few people had difficulty seeing it. So Alira and Zach, would you please put your votes in the chat? Or you could send them directly to the host.
So Rebecca, would you please help me with the tally? I see none in the chat.
Okay, so Bob and Suzanne in the chat, and then I said yes in the chat. So we have 3 additional yeses. Zach is abstaining. So we have, it looks like 8.
I'm also counted as a yes, Rebecca.
Okay, so 15 yes, 1 no, and, oh, wait. Sorry. Alira said yes too. So 15 yes, 1 no, and 4 abstentions.
Motion passes. Applicant is approved or recommended from this body. Madam Chair, I hand the reins back over to you.
Thank you so much. And I know that's not our standard protocol. I do not intend on recusing myself any further times, but That's how we had to handle this particular item. So I do appreciate everybody's patience as we worked with our executive committee on the matter. Next on our agenda item, let me just share my screen real quick again. All right, next up is going to be a tax ordinance for Z-24-12. This is to waive the City of Atlanta's sign ordinance to allow security video technology to be integrated with suspended signs. This encourages our service stations to install surveillance cameras by helping to offset any of those costs that the installation would incur. We have met as a zoning committee. Jacob Mills, would you like to speak on the zoning committee's census on this?
I apologize, Madam Chair. What was this one again?
This is for the surveillance, allowing security video technology to be integrated with their suspended signs at gas stations. I'm happy to take this if you'd like.
Yes, please do. I believe the zoning committee had discussed this, and the recommendation was to approve it. So, yes, please continue with that.
Correct. So the zoning committee did discuss this during our last meeting. We did feel that this was an important one to approve as the city does look to have more security through our surveillance system of camera integrations at gas stations. This does not waive any of our gas stations from actually installing the security system, but just how they're installed through their signs, which are suspended signs. So I will open the floor for any questions on this. Gloria Hawkins-Wynn, you have the floor.
Yeah, this was discussed at APAB on Saturday. I absolutely, I think the call of the day for businesses is the VIC system, that video integrated camera system, providing, you know, both security for not only the premises, but for the owners as well. But there was some question that arose as to whether there was some hazard with those cameras hanging directly over the pump. I'm not real sure how that was resolved because there was no vote tendered from APAB on Saturday, but that was the issue. And according to Ms. Holmes, someone came in with a video or footage showing that it had been installed, and she sent it to code enforcement because those cameras are yet to be installed because there's still something being worked out in terms of so yeah, that question is arose, and I don't think yet. I don't know. Are we to vote on it? But I know that is it just a fact sheet at this point?
There is the ordinance sheet as well. It does not have any more information as to safety of those suspended cameras. My understanding of this was if you were to go to a service station at this point, you see as you're pumping your gas, there is a monitor there, and they could have it intertwined with that monitor, which allows for promotion. So that way they could actually produce revenue to help offset that cost.
Yeah, the risk is something about the suspension, but again, someone has already installed it, and I know that Ms. Holmes has sent some notice to code enforcement because it is yet to pass.
Okay. Zach Murray, I will call you to the floor.
Yeah, it seems like the city's, fronting some of the costs for these cameras is my understanding. I mean, to me, I'm not sure how this, it seems at best reactionary. Not sure how this makes us safer. We already have 124 cameras per 1,000 people in Atlanta. That's double the amount of cameras they have in Washington, D.C. And so everyone, we don't have sidewalks. You have to have a car in the city to get to work, to get groceries, to do most things. I don't understand why my privacy should be waived for this type of undertaking because I have to get gas in order to live here. So to me, I'm not sure how this makes us safer. I'd much rather see our city invest in things that actually make us safer, like jobs, affordable housing, food access, than to act as if these cameras are going to somehow magically improve safety. We have a ton of cameras here in Lakewood, and a lot of the crimes here go unsolved. So, to me, the city to shell out money like this is a ridiculous undertaking, and the expectation that somehow citizens waiving their right to privacy makes us safer is just outrageous to me. And so I would strongly encourage folks who believe in the right to privacy and that exchanging that right doesn't improve safety to vote no to this. This is something just outrageous. The city would even suggest they'd cover the cost for this, but then to have them at every single pump in the city, knowing that's a requirement to live here, to me, is a ridiculous undertaking.
So just for clarity, my understanding from this was not that the city would cover any of the costs. It was a waiver to allow how this is installed so that the station itself, that home business owner would be able to offset the cost through that suspended sign system, which could be through promotions or advertisements. From this information provided by the city, it does not state that the city is actually offsetting the cost by their expense.
Quick question: who's an expense to?
It is expensive.
So where's the source? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Did you have more to your question? My apologies.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out where the cost savings comes from. What exactly?
So the applicant, which is going to be the gas station owner, their expense is to install these cameras, and it's supposed to be at every single pump in order to make sure that people that are pumping gas aren't stealing gas, or if there's any criminal activity, that there is access through APD. That expense that the business owner must take, they can offset that by allowing these monitor systems and to have the camera integrated into them. That's my understanding. Does that answer your question, Zach?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand where the offset, the cost. That part isn't clear to me, but yeah, it's okay. Thank you.
Vanessa Fletcher, you have the floor.
Yeah. The question is, how we won't know that it'll be a sad mistaken case of mistaken identity to where this software might mistake somebody for being the next person because it can't recognize off of facial recognition. They've had things to where it's been false cases of people getting killed because of stuff like this. So how we won't know with this technology won't, for lack of better words, how we know it won't be another case of mistaken identity, because we have way too many situations where that does happen.
I understand the question. So currently the integration is already being pursued by APD in the city of Atlanta. This ordinance is strictly to allow the different type of integration through the display that they're allowed to advertise through. I do know that APD has strongly expressed that these camera systems and the information they get from it is just to assist with their procedures when it comes to any sort of criminal case that comes up. It is not the only way that they would handle identifying anybody or moving forward with any cases. So I know that is more of a specific question for our APD that we can certainly ask more information to. But I do want to make sure everybody understands that camera system is already being taken into effect. So this is strictly for how that camera could be offset by advertisements or suspended signs.
But my thing is, you already have a ton of surveillance going around the city. Why even go in depth with even putting way more surveillance on stuff like that? I feel, in my opinion, that's kind of a waste of money, because it's like you got way more important things than this. It's way more important things than just putting a ton of surveillance that don't even necessarily need to even be there, because that's invasion of privacy.
I do hear you. I know that it's been a safety concern from our APD as to, what type of criminal activity has been going on at some of these gas stations, especially when it comes to loitering. I do see in the comments, as to facial recognition, I'm not sure if that's even something that's really utilized within our city. We have not really had that disclosure from APD. I'll certainly make note of these questions when it comes to our safety and privacy. I do know again that this system is not for real-time access as to being able to monitor individuals. It's more to be able to access if there is an event that they can go back to.
I just say, because for lack of better words, we have too many cases where it's like people don't necessarily, and technology is a little bit too in depth. It's a lot of intricate things you can see what technology can actually do. So, you know what I'm saying? We don't want to have mistaken situations where it could have been invested in other things other than something for the interests of others when it's not particularly pertaining to people. When it's to more people with corporations, they put profit over people. So we would want to value the people rather than the profit that people trying to get.
I do hear you. I don't have any more information from what is disclosed from APD at this time. So again, I'll reach out to APD and see if we can obtain any additional information on that. Paula Cooper-Smith, you have the floor. Paula, you are still, there you go.
You, I've got it. I just wanted to hear a little bit because I don't remember hearing it before, so I apologize for that, but just a little bit of the rationale behind our NPU's zoning team and how they got to a yes, and whether that that affirmation has already been expressed to the city in any way.
No, so that committee, when they do a recommendation, it goes to the NPU here at the our general body meetings. We generally read through this information and discuss what it actually means, because a lot of times we get these fact sheets and it's not as clear as to what the amendment is. So our understanding was that the camera system is already being pushed and is going to be in place or is already in place. This would allow for our business owners to offset that cost. So that way it's not a singular camera that is, above head looking down at somebody. They're able to put it with some sort of advertisement in order to help produce some sort of revenue for the business.
Oh, yeah, I understand. So our zoning folks have already said that they are, during this meeting, they have mentioned they are in favor. I just wondered how they came to that, what their consensus is.
Yeah, Jacob Mills, I know that I'm on the board as well, but Jacob Mills, would you like to answer any additional information as co-chair?
Thank you.
Yes, so that it was simply due to the fact that security systems are something that we see that we need more in the neighborhood, not necessarily for surveillance. It's not facial recognition type or AI type information. This is real time, camera that we're looking at from the neighborhood side. So it's access for the police, and it's something that the cost is actually associated with whatever company, whatever gas station is looking to install these types of cameras. So it's not something that we were opposing in the sense that it takes or infringes on personal liberties, those types of things. It was something more along the lines of this is a motion that is being pushed as far as the city goes. They're even requiring this type of security cameras now for new construction. New construction is requiring, just because it's the amount of theft. It's a way to reduce the issues that are going on with the police department as far as strained resources, and having that information available in real time. It makes it accessible for them to apprehend people that are stealing gas, people that are creating, criminal stuff at the gas station, or if, something happens. I mean, I was over on Lee Howell just the other night, and while I pulled up for gas, there was an individual that got pulled over by Georgia State Patrol. They ended up running from the vehicle, but those types of cameras and those situations are something that helps the officers obtain these individuals and work with the business owners to be able to secure and create a safer environment. So that was where the zoning committee had come in, and I see that Bob is on here as well. I know that Bob might want to chime in on that too, Madam Chair.
Yes, Bob, you can have the floor. I believe you said you're on the phone. If you're
Yeah.
calling in, oh, I see, you got it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just echo what in response to the question. Yeah, the zoning committee looked at it from the standpoint of the cameras are already being installed. It was not a vote of affirmation in favor nor disfavor of the camera system, but simply a vote to say yes, it would allow the entrepreneurs to do this in a more economic fashion for them. So that's where that vote came from.
But I have a question.
If I can just say, I just want to, so they are, I mean, typically speaking, the police in Atlanta and Fulton County, expect that video is going to be implemented and shared in any gas station. Are they now on top of, video surveillance that they are compelled to plug into? Are they now on top of it going to be legally compelled to add cameras to each pump? This is a give me to give them back, but I'm trying to understand, is the city council going to legislate cameras over every pump anyway?
Gloria Hawkins-Wynn, you're well versed more in the VIC program. Do you mind answering this question?
I don't know the answer to it. I think what she's asking, is it going to be mandatory?
Right.
Now I understand the movement is mandatory that all businesses integrate with the VIC system. Is the additional layer now requiring video over the gas pumps? I can tell you where it pretty much emanates from, notwithstanding all of the individuals that say it is very intrusive, which there is truth to that. It emanates from the number of crimes that occur right there at the pumps. I don't know if anybody's been following the YSL trial down in NPU-Y down on Cleveland. Overwhelmingly, of those 28 defendants, the issues of robbery and murder in and around those gas pumps. So that is what it emanated from. So sometimes it is a balancing of rights of privacy, but again, I acquiesce to just trying to live more safely, and that's the bottom line. But again, that battle is on whether individuals are giving up certain rights. But one will argue there's not as much expectation of privacy in public venues. That is a general argument. Although I hear that AMI argument, artificial intelligence, I hear that argument. It is scary.
So Madam Chair, what I'm trying to come at here is the accuracy of the legislation that City Council is hoping to accomplish here. In order to vote on this in any way, there needs to be some clarity on that legislation to understand whether they are going to make these cameras mandatory. When I read it, it seems that what they're saying is, this is something that we're going to give you back to try to help take the pain of the cost that we are going to force you to incur. And if that is what we're voting on, that needs to be clear. Safety, and everybody's feelings about safety and surveillance, I understand those things. I don't know that this body is super clear on whether this is simply to say yes to something that is already, to assist a business with something they're going to make mandatory and help them absorb the shock of the cost.
Yes,
If
and
we,
I agree with you that we have not had a lot of clarity about the new
Right.
legislation that will come through.
Exactly.
Currently, the VIC program does exist. However, the new legislation that could make mandatory for the service pumps to hold those cameras as well has not been codified. So that's still in discussion with APD and with our council. So at this time, we're currently voting on an amendment of what already exists, which does have that VIC program for our service stations. And this just allows that addition to offset it. As to whether or not they're doing a preemptive legislation based on what they could approve. Our information, unfortunately, is limited, as we have not gotten any additional clarity on the new legislation from APD.
Okay, for me right now, there are too many unknowns, and it does seem like, efficient government one way or another to get down to whether this is the ultimate direction they're moving in. If this, if that's what council is going to do, if that's where the votes are, then we should just get there. Whether I agree with it or not, but a clear and longer term solution, or legislation instead of half steps that seem strange.
I completely understand. And, we're working on the same information that is being provided to the community at this time. The executive board, as well as the zoning committee, have only received these 2 points, which is our fact sheet and our the legislation here. We're given this based on the agenda once we receive it from DCP. So we weren't given in advance, how to review this or to be able to ask additional questions. So for the sake of time, we'll move to the next question, and Zach, you'll be called on next as you've already had your hand raised. Suzanne, you have the floor.
Yeah, I was just trying to get clarity as well. And my question is, why are we voting on stuff we're not really clear on? Can we defer this? Can we ask for more information? I mean, it seems a little, I thought what we were saying is that this was already approved and this was permitting people who were going to put this on. I didn't realize it was enforced, that we're going to put in cameras as a way of offsetting the cost, which is a private decision. But if it's a public decision that's forcing this onto private entrepreneurs and allowing them to offset the cost, it's a different thing when it's a public decision that's being enforced by the government. So I'm unclear about what we're voting on, for what reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as to what is required of these service stations, I do know that integration to the VIC system has been something that has been required for quite some time. As to the additional cameras that could be enforced, those have not been released to our knowledge. So this is strictly just to change how they're able to implement those cameras. Again, we can defer this or, vote not to abstain from announcing
Or get more
our vote to the
information.
city. However, just for everybody's knowledge, it does state that they will be holding their public meeting April 11th. So it does not give us a lot of time to have additional meetings on the matter. We will be able to have some more discussion of this during our zoning committee meeting, which is at the end of the month. However, we don't hold a vote that would carry over as the general body's vote. So there will be
No, but you would have expertise. And since we've had this discussion where everybody's confused, we can defer to that committee that has more expertise, since you've heard that everybody's confused. And personally, I would prefer to defer to people who have more clarity on what we're voting on than for the general body to vote on something we're not clear about. Personally, that's where I stand.
Understood. Zach Murray, you have the floor.
Yeah, actually, thankful for the last comment. I wanted to motion to defer. I did also want to say that it does mention in the fact sheet that there's 24-hour monitoring and inclusion into an artificial intelligence system. And I think there's just so many ethics and privacy concerns with that. I mean, it's allowing a 30 square foot sign that'll obviously draw my face in to the camera. at the pump. So I just think there's just too much that we don't know, and it's just astonishing to see the city kind of force these processes through really quick without public knowledge and deep engagement, involved in that process. Again, just not in the belief that exchanging our privacy rights makes us any safer. So I'd like to motion to defer.
Second, Troy Nunley.
So there's a second on the floor. So this is a motion to defer.
Just a quick question, Madam Chair. Do we have an opportunity, if we defer this vote, to put in a vote after we get more information to the body next month? Does that still give us enough time to?
Based on the zoning review board meeting that is shared with us, which is April 11th, that would not give us enough time for our standard general body meetings. Now, we could review the bylaws and see if a special meeting could be hosted specifically for this agenda item. It could be in conjunction with our zoning committee meeting if that's what the community and the executive board chooses.
I think we should, if that's a possibility. I know the motion on the floor is to defer. I'll as well. But if we could have more attendance to the zoning committee, so we can have this opportunity to pass on, because it does sound like there is quite a bit of opposition to this. And if that is the case, I would like to be able to have that opportunity to submit that to NPU as the recommendation from the NPU-Y.
I have a question. Do we know, can we determine before the vote tonight if there will be a special meeting on this item? Because if there can't be or won't be one that we think will be popularly attended, I'd like to revise the motion.
So that would have to be in our motion. So that would have to be a friendly motion. Let me give it over to Troy Nunley first before we ask for a friendly addendum to the motion. Troy Nunley.
Well, I just had a clarity question because the public hearing is April the 11th, but this seems to be legislation, so I don't think the public hearing is going to be where they make a vote. So
a lot of times they don't, they're not going to announce their vote. As Troy is well versed on this, they won't announce a vote, but a lot of times they do close off their public comments by that hearing date to give them time for comment and review in-house. So if we would want to make a recommendation, I would recommend that we're able to do so before then. And of course, everybody as an individual is able to submit their own comments, questions, and concerns based on this legislation during that or prior to that public hearing.
okay, because I assume that the zoning review board will have a public hearing, but also the council will have a public, or we can submit to the council our reviews as well. That was my assumption, but yeah, I agree that we probably need to have it ready before April 11th.
Rebecca Robinson.
I was just gonna say, I believe Zach can just withdraw his motion, and then if he wants to motion for something else, he can do that.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to withdraw and actually put on a motion to vote no. I just think the city owes communities far more due diligence for this kind of thing, and we should send a clear statement to them around this that the process and the timelines don't work to get this information out to communities in a way that makes people feel comfortable. So I'd like to vote a motion to vote no.
Madam Chair, point of order, I think whoever seconded has to also agree to.
Yes, thank you. So whoever seconded the original motion, you do have to approve the amendment to motion.
No, to rescind the motion.
Rebecca, we're unable to hear you.
Oh, yeah, I was just saying to withdraw the motion and.
Okay, so the motion on the floor currently is to vote no to reject the amendment as it stands.
Second.
Seconded by Alira. We do have one more hand before I launch the poll. Paul McMurray, you may have the floor. Paul, you're still muted.
Everyone sort of said this, but this is like any other zoning application. Just like the ones we had last month. This is going to be a zoning application. It's going to go to the ZRB, just like if we're rezoning property, it's going to go to the zoning committee and then it's going to go to city council. Okay, so there's no special hearing other than the what goes on as usual in a zoning application.
All right, thank you. All right, so before I launch the poll, again, this is a motion to deny the motion to deny the zoning ordinance. Let me go ahead and launch this. So if you are denying and you want to have this turned down, please vote yes. If you want to say that you do not want this denied, please vote no. This is a motion to deny. Again, if you have more than one member in the community, please make sure that you are placing that in the chat. Additionally, if you are a business constituent, that you are placing that information in the chat prior to voting through the poll.
Also, Madam Chair, the ability to abstain as well. I don't
Yes,
think
you may abstain, of course.
Yeah.
And let's see. All right, we'll leave it open for just some other moment, about 30 more seconds. All right, we will close the poll. Right, the poll is 7 to deny, 4 not to deny, and 1 abstention. With our votes in the chat, that would make 10 to deny, 4 not to deny, and 2 abstentions. So the motion carries to deny the amendment to the zoning ordinance. All right, guys, and we'll make sure to reach out to APD and our contacts with the city zoning office to see if we can get some more clarity on this, and if we're able to bring this back to the table at our next meeting for more information. Let me just share my screen for you again. As it is 9:02, I would like to motion for 10 more minutes as we only have our public announcements to finalize.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
Are there any in opposition? Thank you. All right, next up is our old business. We weren't able to get one of our agenda items, and this is for our John Burdine Community Awards Dinner. J. Francis Springs is hosting the John Burdine Community Awards Dinner, which will be April 11th at 6 p.m. He has asked that our community is able to select up to 3 individuals that have contributed most to the community. With that, we have made a poll so that way, a form so that way if anybody would like to nominate a member of our community that you're able to do so. So I will put that in the chat for us. Please make sure that you are nominating members that are active in our community, that have contributed leadership and to the ongoing of our community organization as NPU-Y. So as there are no new business, we'll move to our announcements. With our announcements, as everybody on this meeting sees, we have switched to the 3rd Tuesday of every month. Additionally, there is no campaigning of our elected officials or those candidates as we move forward through our meetings, and that goes forth for our neighborhood meetings as well, that they do not campaign during those public meetings. I would like to open the floor to ask if there are any other announcements at this time.
Yes, ma'am, Gloria, Madam Chair.
You have the floor.
A couple announcements. I mentioned earlier, just briefly, on this Friday at Black Coffee between, I think, 10 and 3, Nate Hosell, who's one of the two co-chairs of community engagement on the comprehensive development plan. And for the body, it's the community's ability to provide its ask, the things that it wants to see in the community. Some say that they're not binding, it's a wish list, but nonetheless, it is part of a 5-year plan that has to be submitted to for nothing other than funding from the government, the federal government included. Lastly, just want to announce we have quite an accolade. Omar Ali, who is the developer of the Ali Event Center, was just recently named as one of the, I believe, 10 to 12 candidates who will be a part of the search for our new superintendent. So let's wish that whole committee well, and it's good to have a voice on that committee.
Thank you. Are there any other announcements from our general body? Troy Nunley?
Yeah, one of the members of High Point Estates, Langston, he lives in High Point Estates, he has work out in YMCA. He passed away yesterday. So I just wanted to say keep him in our keep his family in our prayers, and keep his family in your prayers.
Wow. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, we have to recognize that we have a lot of our legacy residents that are not able to join our meetings, and reach out to your neighbors. So we've certainly recently had a loss in Chosewood Park as well, one of our legacy residents, and make sure that you're checking on those that are have been predominant for many years in our communities.
Wow.
Any other announcements? I did have a request to discuss how we handle our voting eligibility through our poll system. So just to go through that real quick, and we can have more discussion on this as well. So our votes that we take during our meeting, we do through the poll system, so that way it can record each individual that votes. Those that are unable to vote through the poll, they do so through the chat. That's all compiled into the poll results to make sure that we are comparing voting eligibility to those that are actually casting a vote. A lot of times when we have votes, people are unaware whether or not they are eligible to vote, or are voting knowing that they're not eligible, which I hope does not happen often, but it does happen. So once we're able to go through the attendance record that is shared from DCP and through our chat, since some members are not shown on that attendance record because they're in multiple people are in the same call, we put that into our attendance record and compare the two. And that is how we change and do an adjusted vote based on our minutes. So those minutes are then shared as soon as we can get that adjustment made. Troy Nunley, do you still have your hand raised?
Oops, sorry, Lord.
No problem. Heather, you have the floor.
Yeah, so going off of that statement, especially given a lot of the feedback I was given last year as an NPU executive board member, I'm confused at our executive board's decision to speak at the BZA and the ZRB without denouncing themselves as executive board members and APAB members and speaking directly against the NPU votes, and why that occurred. The mention of votes shouldn't be counted because they weren't accurate. I would expect better from our executive board, and unfortunately, that's not the behavior we saw from both Paul and Gloria. And would like us just to notate that on record and address it, because I found it to be pretty unacceptable.
May I respond, Madam Chair, to that? That's absolutely incorrect. Neither of us, I think it's called what, your First Amendment rights? Neither of us spoke in our capacity as an e-board member of Lakewood or e-board member of NPU-Y. Neither of us. Let's get that record straight. Lastly, what I cited, and again, the record is out there, we can revisit the record. What I cited was that a third of the members who had presented themselves at the NPU-Y vote were deemed ineligible, and that went both ways. both those in favor and both those against. But I thought it was relevant and I mentioned it. But again, anyone can appear at any of those meetings as long as they do not purport to represent anyone other than themselves.
Yeah, we do, if any executive board member wants to speak, they do have to make sure that they're being very clear that they're speaking as a member of the community and not as a leader of our NPU or of their community. We will make sure to have some further discussion on how to make sure that that is very clear as we move forward with any of our zoning or other agenda items that would come before the city boards. Zach Murray, you have the floor.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Heather said. I just found it deeply troubling, and it almost sort of impugns the credibility of the NPU for folks who actually work on the executive board to call in question the validity of the votes. And I didn't see that noted in the minutes that so many of the votes were ineligible. But to me, that just called into question whether the vote was valid. So it wasn't clear to me why that point had been raised at all, other than to undermine the vote that was taken to say that a third of the people weren't eligible. That either speaks to the credibility of the NPU or the enthusiasm that new folks have for this type of project. And the other thing I want to mention is that, and I'll finish, the other thing I want to mention is that last year, and these same rules that apply to the NPU don't apply to community associations, I was threatened by the chair of the NPU with a lawsuit. And in fact, a month later, a cease and desist letter came from Omar regarding my stance on a project. And so, just this, it's just the hypocrisy, in terms of the inconsistency there. It's telling. But I want to just name that to me, that was a troubling thing to hear, that's being questioned, and the selective questioning of the votes when it's convenient to question when someone has a different viewpoint than what the majority takes really undermines the democracy we're trying to establish here. And so I have a higher expectation of our officials than to selectively question votes when they don't agree with the stance. In the case of my election last year, the same thing happened.
Madam Chair, may I respond since
Gloria, can you please hold on a moment? So just to make some clarity of any information here, and please, Zach, if I'm have this information wrong, we do, as stated to other members of the executive board in the past, we do have to state that we are not speaking on behalf of the NPU if it is going against any of the votes of the NPU. The NPU's general body vote is what is handed over to the city through DCP. We have a voting report that we sign off on. I do want to make sure, Zach, there was never a lawsuit threatening, so if there's miscommunication on that, please let's have a discussion, because at no point is legal action ever going against any of our members from the from myself, at least I can speak on that matter. Gloria,
just to clarify, really quickly,
may I respond, Madam Chair? I think Jack has already responded. That is simply what I thought I did, and this was the import of it. It was not to impugn credibility. It was to speak to, when you have an appellate process, the reality of what occurred was that we had X number of people appeared at that meeting because people are excited. Absolutely. And I believe I raised that point. It was the excitement. Nonetheless, it was so exciting that a third of those coming really are not real participants, in that they don't participate regularly enough to be counted as a vote. It was not to undermine, but any appellate process deserves understanding give us a full vision of what that was. It was a process that was exciting, but it was a process that also brought many folks in the room who had not been in. It's the whole purpose of the voting eligibility, is that folks don't come in for a one-off. That is my opinion, but I think it is well shared. But it was not to undermine, and I think it's disingenuous to say we signed like everyone else, did not sign in capacity as NPU or anyone other. I still feel that. I feel that there should be development there. It is the size of the build, and it is the things that it's doing, taking away the 2R4 and the height. That's still my opinion, but it's not to say anybody else's opinion is off. But you keep trying to impute to me my role on this body. I did not represent myself as such, and I do not represent myself as such. I simply represent my opinion, just as the rest of you all did. You just happen to know my role on both
Gloria,
of
thank
boards.
you. We're gonna keep moving on. And again, this is for record, so if we're, getting into accusations, we will be asked to mute, and we can talk about that offline a little bit further, but we want to make sure that we're holding a good decorum during our meeting here. Paul McMurray, you have the floor.
Yeah, I just want to say that in no moment did I ever claim I was representing NPU-Y. I said I was an NPU-Y member, which I am. And I can say that anytime I want to. Okay? And it's just because we said things you didn't like, Zach. So you've created.
Again, watch, Paul, please make sure that we're keeping the decorum of Robert's Rules of Order.
Well,
Thank you.
well, this is just a big, because you didn't like it, you've got to create some feeling that somehow the NPU was wrong, but it wasn't. Actually, the NPU on all aspects of that issue was represented.
All right, so we'll move on to the next that has not raised their hand, Kelly Petty, and then we'll move back to Zach and Heather, as you've already been called on once. Kelly Petty, you have the floor.
Nicole, I just wanted to know if you can just reiterate again, what was the vote and the shift in the vote? Just kind of reiterate so that we all have an understanding again that of Gloria's mention of the vote changing because of the eligibility. Can you just restate that again so we all have that for record and know what it was?
Absolutely. So we have our voting matters here. So for, let's go for the first item that was actually Charleston, which is the one that has been of topic. Sorry, let me just scroll correctly. So the vote that was shared with the general body during the meeting as a vote from the poll and from the chat was 25 yes, 10 no, and 4 abstentions. This was changed to 14 yes, 6 no, and 4 an abstention. Again, the next vote, which was for the BZA, which was for a reduction of the height, which was 21 yes, 10 no, and 1 abstention, was changed to 14 yes, 7 no, and 1 abstention. The last was for the comprehensive development plan, and this went from 23 yes, 8 no, and 2 abstentions to 16 yes, 6 no, and 1 abstention. So my understanding from this, based on telling the voting eligibility and correlating it with the poll, is that we had many members that were new members and were ineligible to vote. We did have to contact one member to make sure that they are voting as a business delegate, as we did not have record of such, and we still counted their vote.
And so can you just clarify that that this is a common practice in general body meetings, and that we should have the expectation that when we come in to vote, we make sure that, which you all do, you remind us of the rules for voting. We take a vote, and that you all have the right to go in, and you're supposed to go in and audit that vote to make sure that it's accurate and it follows the rules of eligibility. Is that correct?
Correct, absolutely. So when we take our votes, we're going straight off of an honor system that your eligibility. If you do not know your eligibility, you are able to ask and we can share that information. But if you're unaware, that you've met a couple of the meeting requirements, that you please go ahead and vote, because we can just exclude that vote based on eligibility. But we do want everybody to have a voice. And so that's why we asked to go ahead and make that vote, and we will verify that eligibility with the attendance record. Your attendance record is based on what is released by DCP from Zoom. So as you log into your account, that counts as your attendance, but also from the chat, since many of our members have more than one person on that Zoom call. And of course, that doesn't correlate over to the attendance report. So we do try to get that attendance record updated within a couple days from the close of our meeting. It does take a day or two for DCP to send that over to us. once we verify that and input the information, then we're able to correlate that with our polling results, and to make sure that that is eligible. If there's ever a question of eligibility, we always reach out to our members first to make sure that we're verifying their voting status and whether or not they have been in attendance, or if they feel they have been in attendance. And then, of course, at any point, if you ever feel that you have had more attendance than what is reported, you are able to contact us and we can discuss that, because a lot of times, it might not carry over. Again, if you're in multiple calls, it's hard to make sure that we get that information put into the attendance report if it's not in the chat, but we can look at the recording, especially if you've spoken. Unfortunately, it does not show participation. We also look through, like I said, the chat is our biggest informative of any additional members.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So last roll call is Zach and Heather, and then we'll go ahead and close this out for a sake of time.
Yeah, thank you. I did not call out anyone first expressing their First Amendment right. I specifically agreed to that when in fact I was served with a cease and desist letter. That was why that letter was easily dismissed last year, was because I have a First Amendment right and the rules of the NPU don't apply to community association chairs. What I do question and feel strong disappointment in is that a person with inside knowledge of the NPU would say on the floor of the zoning board that the votes were skewed because of a lot of attendance of people who just wanted to show up to vote for something, when in fact it looks proportional on both sides. But to suggest that it was skewed really, I think, undermines what we all do when we come together here. And I just request that folks representing the NPU, whether they're speaking for themselves, don't speak to the processes of the NPU specifically in an attempt to undermine what happens here, because it's messy. And the ZRB is online for folks who want to watch the video. It's pretty clear that it was suggested the votes were skewed, and that is deeply troubling.
We'll make sure that we have note of that in our minutes, and we'll also discuss it as an executive board to make sure that it is clear how to announce that you are representing yourself and not our committee or our NPU as a whole. Heather, you have the floor.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate Zach's point. As an executive board of the NPU and Lakewood for the past 2 years, I was the one that was probably bullied the most around this issue last year from members of the current board, in addition to the members that decided to speak on behalf of the neighborhood at the ZRB. It was made very clear by the past 2 NPU presidents and Gloria that it was unacceptable and you have to specifically denounce your representation. And the fact that our APAB representative, our vice chair, and our secretary went on the record, did not denounce that, and then continued to speak against the vote of the neighborhood association and the NPU and insinuate fraud was unacceptable. And I expect that to be resolved in the same way that you attempted to resolve it last year. I denounced my involvement and spoke as an individual, and I expect the same. I don't sit on any boards within our neighborhood or the NPU at this point, but I still understand those rules. And it's crazy to me that that was not the case here. Thank you.
Troy, Nunley, you have the floor.
Yeah, so I agree. I had no knowledge of this until this meeting, until stated. If anybody from Lakewood Heights or any neighborhood where I was chair feel that I was threatened, that they was threatened, that was never my intention. My intention was always to try to unite and not destroy. So if you feel like that I caused a unsafe environment for you all, then that's my apologies. I'm willing to own that here on the call, because my intent was never to threaten anybody or give a negative impression. It was only to provide the suggestions that can create a united front and a united community. So I just wanted to make that publicly stated. And I will, now that I have this information, even though I'm not chair, I still can talk to both Gloria and Paul and talk to them personally about it and give my thoughts just as though I gave it to other members here in the Lakewood Heights community.
Thank you. Vanessa Fletcher.
Yeah, just quick question, dealing with the surveillance, in the vote. Um, Other than the major concern is just more so the line, I'm just gonna say it all the way. Being honest, it's a lot of mistaken identities out here. That's like literally that's causing people lives. And everybody might not directly say it because they might not be affected because either you're going to work or you're not really, you coming to do business in the city. While most of us who actually live out here have to go through plenty more other things. Safety is like a loose word that's been thrown around all day just to advertise that. To me, that's false advertisement because you telling me I'm gonna be safe, but all along, you know what I'm saying, this could really be a hazard. And I have kids. So not to mention, you know what I'm saying, I have young sons that could literally be mistaken for somebody else. And the officer or whatever you might have on the patrol might literally mistake them for somebody. And we looking at a situation where a child get mistaken for anything. We got several victims out here. I can go several down the line. Rachel Brooks. I can go to Tamir Rice. I can go to Mike Brown. There's several situations like that where it's too many times where these officers and just being over excessive force and being putting hands on innocent civilian. We get it. Everybody in the neighborhood is not a saint or an angel, and I can admit that. But we don't need too much surveillance to where it's intruding in people's privacy because you have innocent people out here that's really trying to live a life of just being out here instead of y'all thinking it's about people, you know what I'm saying, not voting on that. You got to remember it's other civilians that stays here that's actually trying to live in a peaceful neighborhood where safety is not just loosely, it's like literally happening to where we can live in peace. That's what safety means, not be in prison.
Thank you. Yeah, and I certainly want to have further discussion about that because we want to make sure that we're communicating with APD moving forward, and we can have an in-house discussion with any of our members through our public safety meeting. So if you have any dates that you'd like to set up that meeting with us, please let us know. I put our information in the chat again. Paula Cooper-Smith.
Thank you. Thanks for making time, Nicole. I appreciate it. I'd really appreciate knowing how our NPU board and our voting body is going to guarantee consistency in process and representation. What happened down at the ZRB meeting was deeply surprising, not just to those who came to speak in favor of St. Vincent de Paul project. I mean, win or lose, we're gonna agree, disagree. Some votes are gonna go some way and some others. But watching the eyebrows of an entire board of zoning appeals that our community has the right to work with in a consistent manner, is tough. Not to mention the fact that if we hadn't gone down to speak, I think there were at least 4 or 5 of us who went to speak in approval for our project. What I want to know from this board is how we count on our votes being safe if we cannot go down to these meetings. If we cannot, our representation here with you during these processes is really important. It's an important burden on your part. I do see the differences in the votes, and I do appreciate you going through the process of vetting them. And I also saw them on the ZRB agenda, so it was clear that they had been recorded. All of that is as it ought to be, and that's your work as volunteers. So how do we all work together to make sure that is the process and it stays there? It stays that way. It's not always fun to be the one on the losing end, but the vote of anybody in this association when they turn their back on it ought to be as good as when they voted in the poll. And not, much less our community, be down at ZRB, kind of upside down and sideways. So I'd really like your thoughts on how you're going to guarantee that our votes are safe, whether we are down at a ZRB meeting or not. Other than the fact that you have recorded them there, how do you make sure that they are not held to question?
Absolutely. And we do submit a voting report to DCP that is actually what follows through to these boards with the city. So any public comments is not that of the executive board. When it comes to them standing in front, they can't change the vote after that voting report comes in. That voting report that is signed off is what holds true to these committees. I would like, just for the sake of time, if we can keep this conversation going during one of our executive board meetings, which every member is always welcome to attend. I think that would be a good place to start discussing how we can make sure that we aren't having these same issues come up throughout the following year and future.
I'd appreciate that. If you could set a date and time and open it up, that would be awesome. And I appreciate your integrity in doing so.
Absolutely. And I'll share with everybody through our mailing system when our executive board is, which it looks like our next executive board will be April 3rd. That information can be found on our NPU-Y.org website through the event page. I know that we have a sake of time, so we have 2 more hands that are raised, but if we can please keep this brief. Thank you. Gloria Hawkins-Wayne, you have the floor.
Yeah, I guess thanks to everyone for voicing their opinion, but I just want to give big kudos to Troy, because what Troy is saying, if my conduct or my behavior offended, I apologize. But I would also say that there was no attempt to go down and present myself as anybody or anything. It is still the very strong opinion that I have right now. Yes, St. Vincent de Paul, develop it. But I think you need to revisit the design so you don't have to ask us to consume those 2 lots. That's still my opinion. But again,
just for a point of order, that's a closed agenda item as to redesign or anything of that.
Well, no, but I'm just saying what the voice, the what is it, the augmentation of the voice. But I guess really I just want to comment on Troy, because I think he's feeling like, wow, I didn't know these people were feeling that way. And I'm saying similarly that it wasn't, again, it was nothing other than the strength of my voice saying, this is what I believe is in the best interest, as we all are. And again, bringing out the vote, it was nothing more to show that even both sides, both the yeas and the nays, had significant differences, which means the excitement was there, but it was zeal without the process that really underlies it. And I think Kelly has reiterated that what the process is, that the votes are all taken into account, and then there's later a process by which is to determine what is in fact the outcome. But again, I echo what Troy, he has a very different voice, but I feel similarly. Didn't mean to offend anybody. I'm a volunteer wanting the best interests of this community, like all of you, and I plan to, I want to get along. That's just the nature of it. Get along as best we can, even the differences, don't let them separate us, period.
Thank you. Next I'll call is Yolanda Cameron.
I really want to stall, just take a breath and just breathe. And I kind of reiterate Gloria's last point in the words of the great prophet Rodney King. Can't we all just get along? But my question is totally unrelated. Over here in Park Place South, there's a fence going up in that area along Pryor. Does anybody know what that's about? I don't know if it's development or.
Yeah, if you want to drop in the chat what that location is, I can look into it and see if there's anything in Acela.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yolanda,
it's all fenced in. It's all fenced in. That's why
it just went up on Zillow a couple of days ago for sale.
That entire
is it?
Yeah. I think they said it can be up to 12 units.
Wow.
On Zillow.
Wow. Right
there. I think it's like 300,000. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I inquired about it as well, since I'm in Park Place South as well.
So for the sake of time, one more hand, and then we'll move on to our final closing so that we can get out of here and we can continue any discussion in what we like to call our after party, which is just an open conversation amongst our community members that is not in our official meeting. Heather Graybill, you have the floor.
Yeah. Yolanda, I echo you and, acknowledging that our community should be allowed to disagree on things and move forward and work together as a community. Unfortunately, that's not the experience I've had along with a lot of my neighbors. That being said, Nicole, I would just like on the record for you to acknowledge how this should have been handled, because I'm getting mixed views from Gloria right now, especially on whether it's expected of NPU executives to say that they are speaking only on behalf of themselves and not the boards they represent, or not, because that was made very abundantly clear to me last year, and it doesn't seem to be being made to the executive board members currently. So can you just go ahead and acknowledge which way it is so that we can move forward and address that and, make sure that we're working towards a positive community together going forward?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Heather. Yeah, so as stated, I did put in the chat, but it, just on a recorded record is that any executive board member or committee member that is speaking, they do have to state how they are speaking. And if you are an executive board member, you are to represent yourself unless you are representing the community as what the community voted. You cannot go against the community's vote and state that you are the executive member. You would have to speak as a resident or a business owner within our community. So it is very explicit that you are to announce that prior to any discussion or remarks, whether that's in person or through emails. We've had a lot of discussion with multiple members, not just one, throughout the years, to make sure that that is very clear, because we do want to make sure that our general body's voice is heard as to what is said during our meetings, what is voted on during our meetings, and that any decisions made outside of that are from individual members and not using the weight of their position. As we've already gone through this extensively, we are going to move to our planner's report, and then we can still keep open any discussion afterwards. I will call on our city planner, Elizabeth Clappman. You have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. And actually, some of the planner's report has actually already been addressed. First of all, as was already mentioned, this year the City of Atlanta is celebrating the 50th anniversary of the neighborhood planning units and the 50th anniversary of Atlanta's first African-American mayor, Maynard Jackson. In honor of Mayor Jackson's birthday, the Department of City Planning is commemorating his legacy of love with a legacy week, which is going to be a week-long collection of educational and empowerment events geared towards civic engagement. We invite you to join us at one of those events. I'm going to be putting the link in the chat, giving you the full breakdown, and basically to show how your voice is being heard on matters in your neighborhood in terms of equity and education and things like that. Second of all, thank you to everyone who attended our Plan A kickoff, which was at Greenbrier Mall about 2 weeks ago. As again previously mentioned, I think Gloria's taken my job. She's got half of my announcements for me. It is the beginning of an 18-month process to update the City of Atlanta's Comprehensive Development Plan, which is required by law every 5 years. I actually already dropped it in the chat earlier, but there is a handout that breaks down when all of these open houses are going to be throughout the next month. I invite you to come tomorrow night. We are having a community engagement open house at the Adams Park Community Center. Feel free to stop by and say hi. I will be one of the greeters at that event. So we invite you to that. You can visit atlforall.com to learn more. As I said, I also shared the flyer that breaks down all of the dates for these community engagement open houses. I will also further note, Gloria actually already mentioned that there's going to be a pop-up. Just to explain a little bit about what the difference between the pop-ups and the formal open houses are. The pop-ups are more of a casual drop-in, drop-out. As she mentioned, there is going to be one in Lakewood Heights, which is going to be at the Black Coffee Company, where Nate Hazel, who is leading this entire effort for the city, he is going to be there between 10 and 2. Those are the actual hours. These are much more formal. If you have something that you really want to focus on and talk to a planner one-on-one about, those are really good opportunities to do that. The open houses are going to be much wider and broader with a number of different engagements. So if you're looking for that one-on-one interaction, I really encourage you to go to the pop-up, and they're going to try to be as present as possible. There'll be more of those coming up as well.
All right, thank you so much.
We actually have two more. Sorry. Building permits and the Cellar for Beginners is going to be held on Thursday, March 28th. That is part of the NPU University. That's a big one. If you are looking to put an addition on your house, things like that, it's a really good starter permitting class. The City of Atlanta Studio Book Club will be starting on Tuesday, the 26th. That has also got more information at the link in the chat. We are reading 99% Invisible. So we're going to be reading some really great books about urban planning for those of you who are really interested in that development. Finally, you can text NPU-ATL to 24251. That will give you updates on both Plan A, the 50th anniversary of the NPUs, all of basically the updates that you need to hear. And then lastly, sorry, I know a lot of announcements tonight. Now we're running late. In May of 2023, we began a pilot program to provide updates on your voting items as they progress through the approval process. We're excited to roll this out in all of the NPUs citywide. And the application update for NPU-Y in March is that in January 2023, NPU-Y voted to support V23-153 at 1631 Burton Street Southeast. At the February 8th hearing, the Board of Zoning Adjustment voted to approve this application as well. In January 2023, NPU-Y voted to support V23-180 at 46 Bisbee Avenue Southeast. At the March 7th hearing of the BZA, they also voted to approve this. I'm going to be dropping my contact and the link to all of this information in the chat. Now open to any questions if anyone has them.
Thank you. Are there any questions for our city planner? Paul, I see your hand raised, but I believe that's on the item before. Hopefully we can discuss that after the meeting.
Yeah, I'm not, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for our city planner? All right,
No,
as I
Madam
see
Chair,
none, thank you so much.
No, other than thanking her for staying so late.
Yes, greatly appreciated. With that, we will motion to adjourn. So I will put the motion to adjourn our March general body meeting. Do I have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Rebecca.
Second by Rebecca. Do I have any in opposition to adjournment? As there are no in opposition, we will go ahead and adjourn at 9:41. I thank everybody for staying on. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now.